Beastmasters Club, experiencing the world's finest whiskey, one bottle at a time.
Hello, all you Beastmasters out there. Thanks for listening to the podcast. If it's your first time listening, the idea here is that you can buy interesting and delicious bottles of whiskey on our website. That's beastmastersclub.com. And you can pop them open and sip along with us as we meet some of the people at the distilleries who make them. This episode you're about to hear features Chris Riesbeck of Westland Distillery. Westland's one of our favorite craft distillers. They're out of Seattle. And this was a live event we did Friday, January 27th at the gorgeous Norwood Club on West 14th Street in Manhattan. We want to thank Teddy and Alan and all the folks at Norwood who really hosted the event in style. Also the great crowd we had. Thanks to everybody who was able to come out. Just a little club news before we start. We have an event coming up on February 8th at Peated. Peated is one of our favorite neighborhood spots. It's on Church Avenue in Brooklyn. It was founded by one of our original club members, David Sheridan. David's going to make us a big family-style dinner. He makes these amazing sourdough pizzas, and we're going to taste a bunch of private barrel bourbons that Dave has in his collection. We're going to showcase the different bourbon mash bills like high corn, high rye, and see what makes Peated bourbon special, which is Dave's favorite. We're also really happy to announce another event coming up March 16th featuring Dave Pickerel, who, if you haven't heard of him, is something of a legend in the world of whiskey. We're working with Dave and the folks at Whistle Pig to choose a private barrel of Whistle Pig rye that will be available to you Beastmasters out there. So that's really exciting, and we're looking forward to talking with Dave. That's it for now. Sit back, relax, enjoy the podcast. Cheers.
The Beastmasters Club is now in session.
Hello, welcome to the first Beastmasters Club of 2017. Thank you all for coming and joining us here at Norwood. We're really excited to get to showcase some of Westland's whiskeys. We have Chris Riesbeck here with us from Westland. Very excited to share his knowledge and teach you guys a little bit tonight about what Westland does, which is American Single Malt. So it's Scotch-style whiskey made in the USA, and he's going to talk a bit about that and a bit about American craft distilling in general. And you guys will get to enjoy a bunch of great Westland whiskey.
So our first rule is question number one of the interview. What is our first whiskey?
The first whiskey we're going to taste is our Westland American Oak, which we sort of now consider to be our flagship. So it's our 5-malt barley bill matured in virgin white American oak casks. I think the cornerstone when you think about Westland is this idea of a 5-malt barley bill. It is the thread that sort of is common in almost every whiskey that we produce. And the idea of a 5-malt barley bill is that we're using 5 distinct types of malted barley to help make the whiskey.
And for those of you who may read Hebrew or something, we're going left to right tonight, just so you understand what we're dealing with.
I didn't recognize any of the lettering on the page. Maybe that was the problem.
So drink along with us. We're going to chat for 30, 40 minutes, and then we'd love for people to come up. There's a mic here to ask questions, so if you think of anything, please save your questions to the end, but please come up and chat.
Yeah, we would love you to participate, so don't be shy.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Slanja.
All right. Yeah. This is the American Oak, Westland.
Yeah, American Oak.
So I think American Single Malt is going to be kind of the thing this year.
We're certainly banking on that, yeah.
I don't think a year ago that many people knew what it was.
No.
And so, talk to us a little bit about that. I mean, it seems like there's a whole movement here just around American Single Malt.
We're in the process right now of sort of trying to vanguard this movement of the American Single Malt Whiskey Commission, where we're working with other producers around the country to have the federal government recognize American Single Malt Whiskey as something that can be on the packaging and actually be an enforceable style of whiskey.
So we should just to start from the beginning, sort of, bourbon is majority made of corn, rye is made of rye. Single malt whiskey in Scotland is 100% malted barley. So this is kind of the American using that same recipe. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, we don't anticipate being any changes to that. We want American Single Malt Whiskey to be 100% malted barley.
Mm-hmm. But what would make this different from a typical Scotch whiskey?
It's not made in Scotland.
In terms of
we also.
I guess I had that one coming.
That's the sort of low-hanging fruit answer. But I think the other thing would be is that we're looking in terms of maturation rates. We're looking at a 2-year minimum instead of a 3-year minimum that's in Scotland. I think a part of that is that we want to make the category as appealing as possible for other craft producers to come in and be a part of it. You look at Westland. Westland's one of a few distilleries that can say that we exclusively produce American Single Malt whiskey. the intention at some point is to get other producers that might just make it as a line extension where they're producing a single malt as well. We just want to make sure that that space is sort of fertile and there's enough enthusiasm to get other producers to come in and do something with it.
Cool. Well, there's a lot in the market, and we think this is very special. Might be, is it fair to say our favorite craft American single malt?
I'd say so at this point. I mean, we definitely like some of the Balcones stuff as well in terms of American single malts.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Texas.
But I think Westland stands out in the American single malt movement, but also just in American craft distilling right now in general. There's a lot of craft distilling going on. I mean, people I don't know if you guys here have seen a lot, but there are so many new brands of whiskey coming out all the time. A lot of it is kind of mediocre, I would say, really. I know Steve always kind of has a sort of a high bar for whiskeys in general, but and a lot of it is young, so it sort of remains to be seen. But we think that a lot of it is really not quite fit for being put out in the world yet. And even though it is, and some of it is great, I would think Westland really stands out as an American craft producer for sure.
So tell us a little bit about the distillery and, the idea behind it, where you guys are, it feels like Washington is very sort of like near and dear to the brand and to what's going on out there.
It's central to everything we do. So we have this sort of saying at Westland that what we do is thoughtfully made. You'll see it on a lot of our promotional material. And, we're based out of Soto in the sort of southern part of the city of Seattle. It's a pretty industrial part of the city. We're actually located in the old Eater Crane factory. That company was responsible for helping to build the retractable roof on Safeco Field. So we're right in the sort of area with all of the football and baseball and soccer stadium, which is a great little part of town. And the sort of the focus for us at Westland is this idea of trying to do something that's not just about making great whiskey. I was having a conversation earlier. I always find it interesting. You'll hear craft producers a lot of times. They talk about making great product as the sort of the mountaintop for them. At Westland, we like consider that like that's ground floor. It's not worth talking about unless we're going to make great whiskey. It always seems a little surprising when you'll get people talk about, well, this is what we're aiming to do this. Well, no, that's where we start. What we do from there is what sort of separates us and makes us special.
What is American oak? Is that the barrel that it's
yeah,
aged
so
in?
it's 100% Quercus alba here. So we work with
What was that?
Quercus alba.
I don't know what that means.
Yeah, it's white oak.
Okay.
Or American oak. So when we get to the Garyanna, which is we'll taste a little bit later on, that's from Quercus Garyanna. And we're really sort of proud of this idea of using a style of oak that gives our whiskey purpose. It's not just a vessel to mature our whiskey, it's actually to give our whiskey profile. So in the case of the American oak, we work with Independent Stave Company to make all of our casks. We have two different styles of American oak barrels that we do. One is called Cooper Select, which is an 18-month air-dried char level number 3 with a light toast. And then we work with another style of cask called Cooper's Reserve that's going to be a 24-month air-dried with a light char and a heavy toast. And those are really the standard American oak casks that we work with that'll go into almost everything that we produce in some capacity.
Cool. Ben, do you want to give a few tasting notes on this guy?
Yeah, I mean, I like the American oak. I tend to go more into the peated and sherried malts myself, but I do think this is a nice example of sort of like a place to start our evening. So it's I think it's got really for its age at I think like there's like nothing less than 2 years old in here.
Yeah, so it's technically speaking a 2-year-old whiskey, but we are American oak by we think the middle of next year. It'll be close to, if not, a 3-year-old whiskey then.
Right.
It's incredible for that. I would not guess it was 2 years old by tasting it.
No, it has a lot of nice flavor
got a lot
and
of
maturity for that.
Got a lot of flowers. It's got some pepper to it. What are your like trademark?
Well, to me, the big thing that comes out of American oak is that sort of like ground coffee note that we get. We get a little bit of that sort of
coffee
dark
beans.
chocolate ground espresso, and that's coming from a little less than 10% of our malt bill, or our mash bill, if you want to call it that, is coming from using pale chocolate and brown malt. And those give this really interesting flavor. Now, historically, you wouldn't see a lot of distilleries working with those because they make it difficult just to generate alcohol in your fermentation. But In the case of Westland, what's interesting is that by mashing those in with our pale malts, we're actually able to get enough alcohol to go out and distill through. But you really get this incredible flavor. And what's fascinating is that 5 malt is in all of our whiskeys in some level. Certainly in American oak and sherry, it's 100% of it. But when you get into things like peated, it's just a small piece of it. But that slight chocolate and roast coffee note really does come through in just about everything we make.
Cool.
Yeah.
So listen, being in Seattle, aren't you required to have like 4 more inches in the beard? Is that...
Yeah, your beard's looking a little light.
My beard is definitely a
Work on
little
that,
on the
man.
lighter side. This is funny. You guys must have told my wife, because we had a conversation, my wife and I, about a month ago, where she said, you need to shave that thing. It's getting unruly. And I realized pretty quickly that there's nothing in my contract with Westland that requires me to have a beard, but my wife definitely sort of runs the household. So I was pretty keen on not screwing up that situation.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep on
Dana,
top of that.
Dana keeps
works.
telling me to go full ZZ Top. And I'm like,
I think you could get
That'd be
away
a good
with
look.
Yeah,
Yeah,
think
I
so.
like it.
You'd be recognized for
One of those
sure.
spinning
yeah.
guitars.
Yeah.
You'd certainly-
Thank you, Mrs. Z.
All right, so what do we have? Should we move on to the next one? This is the
Yeah, we can move on.
Sherry Wood.
yeah.
Sherry Wood.
So, Sherrywood is it's such a fun whiskey for us at Westland, because it is sort of it's our extending of the olive branch to this tradition of whiskey that's made in Scotland, right? There's so much this sort of history of using these sherry casks. So we work with a really small cooperage in Montilla, Spain, called Toneleria del Sur. It's owned by the Cabello family, excuse me. And what's interesting is that when we buy sherry from them, we buy our barrels upright, so they're not broken down into hoop and stave, so they don't have to get reconditioned in the U.S. when they come over. And that allows us to make sure that we're getting that best quality contact, that really rich sherry maturation.
I feel like somebody wasn't it like the guys from Kilhoman were saying that they don't break down their bourbon barrels either, and they ship them from the U.S. to Scotland, and they're like, we pay for a lot of air in
Yeah.
shipping containers, you know. So I think probably similar situation.
It is financially certainly not the best way to do it, but again, at Westland, it ties back into this idea of, is it thoughtful? Is it the right way to make better quality whiskey? And if it is, then to sacrifice those short-term expenditures to make sure that you, the consumer, and us making the whiskey are satisfied with what we're putting out. That's sort of the cornerstone of what we want to do.
You've got two huge fans of sherried malt.
Yeah. Do we know like what type of sherry was in there and for how long it
Yeah,
would have been in the barrel? And that
so
sort of thing?
it's a mixture of Oloroso and Pedro Jimenez. Each
Ah.
time we release the Sherrywood, it's technically speaking a slightly different batching of barrels right now. This particular batch is obviously 100% 5 malt, and then there's going to be about equal parts Oloroso to PX here.
It's really nice.
Really nice.
Usually you get kind of the more sweet berry richness kind of out of a sherry
Yep.
cask, and I think this is a nice reflection.
So
of
we
that.
You get a lot of that. I think for whatever reason, the sherry, the sweetness also brings out a lot more of that sort of chocolate note, chocolate coffee note in this, especially in the nose. And like it's almost like I've said this probably about more than one sherried malt, but you get sort of like that cherry center chocolate candy kind of note for like
like
berries
cordial-style
coated
candies.
in
Yeah.
chocolate or something. Yeah, very nice.
I think a part of that is also leaving the whiskey at 46% instead of diluting down to 43 or, God forbid, 40. You do get that the addition of or I shouldn't say the addition, but the leaving the alcohol level slightly higher. You do get a touch of that. It sort of keeps it from being overly cloying on the palate.
Cool.
Yeah, nice.
I heard a rumor that there's like these kind of annual hijinks around April Fool's Day at Westland, so I wanted to ask about that.
We do have hijinks. I was told very specifically before coming on this that I'm only allowed to talk about previous April Fool's bottlings and not upcoming April
All right,
Fool's
we'll
bottlings.
ask you again after the
Yeah.
5 whiskeys.
Once the microphones are away, I'll just tell you everything. That's fine. But no, so
Thanks.
we've
Yeah,
done.
Thanks for the folks at home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've done 2 April Fool's bottlings. The first one was called Tequila, which is just south of the Seattle border, which we made an agave-based spirit, which was pretty interesting. And then last year we released
Like
a bottling.
south of the border, you're making the tequila style.
something interesting there. And then
That'd
the
be in
second
Oregon?
one, the second one was Inferno, which was a Washington Pale Malt matured in an ex-Tabasco cask.
Oh man,
Yeah.
I tasted that stuff.
Me too.
When we first met, I think Chris, you gave me
Yeah.
a sample of that, and that stuff
Chris
is
gave
no joke hot.
He gave us a sample of, and I mean, we eat a lot of hot sauce.
I
at
make it
home.
very clear when I
Ghost
taste
peppers,
people on it,
whatever.
yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, you guys take it easy on this," and I'm like, "Whatever, you know,
Yeah.
I got this covered." And I took a sip of this thing and was straight up like Gomer, you know.
It's intense.
It's
yeah,
a
it was a burner.
head cold killer for sure.
It is tremendous in a Bloody Mary.
Oh,
Absolutely
yeah,
perfect in a Bloody Mary. That was one of those where Matt Hoffman has talked about it a couple of times in the office, and he'll say, Matt Hoffman's our master distiller. He's talked about, they tasted it when it was in there for a little bit, and then they tasted it with a little bit longer on, and they were like, all right, it's definitely time to take this out.
Take it out.
Yeah,
Take it out,
because I
yeah.
think we were getting pretty close to like DEFCON 5 with that.
Yes, yeah, it's
Yeah.
spicy, sweet.
It's
So
like gonna be in a hazmat truck or something.
But we are really in the throes of like getting ready for this year's April Fools, and it's hysterical. It's going to be a lot of fun.
I think like a fireball would be fun, like a highfalutin single malt fireball.
Just to
single
cinnamon-
malt
cinnamon flavored.
Fireball.
yeah, the everlasting gobstopper flavored whiskey just
Totally.
constantly changes.
Nerds flavor.
I don't know if we'll ever go that far. I think that would be the sort of the barrier at which we'd go. Well, let's step back one or
Never
two
say
paces.
never.
Yeah, no
You
kidding.
never know.
Yeah.
All right. So the sherry. Any thoughts, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what people think. I think this is really nice. It's different from. These are all different from what I would think of as like a. I guess the closest equivalent would be like a Speyside malt, but they're richer. They're kind of like firmer. They have more spice and pepper, and I think the espresso is really nice. And this one just brings out a little more fruit for me. So it's a really nice combination.
If American oak, I've said this occasionally at tastings, if American oak is like chocolate covered espresso beans, sherrywood is more like that chocolate raisinated quality. It's a little richer, a
Raisinets or
little
something.
denser. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we've talked about it before, but one of the only big things right now keeping the whole sherry industry alive is malts.
whiskey.
So like,
Yeah.
there's very few people who drink sherry anymore, and some of the sherry producers are basically making sherry just to create casks to age malted whiskey in, and it's a little crazy, but it's like if you love single malt whiskeys, go out and buy some sherry once
be like
in a
a
while.
Taos. Like, you have to drink a
you
case
should
of
have
sherry.
to sort of support that industry. Otherwise, there's going to be no more sherried malt.
We have had this conversation ad nauseum in the sort of behind the scenes of when you go into these major Whiskey Live, Whiskey Fest trade shows, and we're all sitting around, and you'll get the people behind the tables who are like, God, we just need people to drink more sherry. It should be a requirement that if you want to drink sherry, you are guaranteed or you're required to buy 6 bottles of decent quality Oloroso or PX sherry a year, and you should have to adopt a British grandmother because I think to a certain degree they're really kind of keeping the industry going.
It's
Always
true.
wanted a British grandmother.
Don't we all, though? I mean, really, that to me seems just so obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Sorry, Grandma.
Maybe we can create another club that would be focused around British grandmother adoption. Yeah, I don't know. Might be tricky.
Doing important work here.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So let's talk about peat. You guys,
Peated, yeah.
where do
Peated.
you get peat from?
So the peated that you're drinking right now is all coming from the UK. We're buying peated malt in 50-pound bag from Baird's Malting in the Central
So
Highlands.
as all you guys can may or may not know, I mean, I'm sure a lot of you understand, but peated malts are the smoky malts. So it's peat smoke that they use to
Dry the barley
yeah,
and-
to dry and malt the barley, and that is what gives peated malt whiskey its smoky flavor. So that unique, like deep smoke bomb comes from peat smoke. And so, yeah, go on. I just wanted to-
So with the peated style that we're trying to do, there's sort of 2 schools of thought with peated whiskeys. Either it's upfront or it's sort of balanced out. So I think you get certain whiskeys where there's that massive flush of peat up front, something like Lafroig. I think with Westland, you're getting where the peat is certainly more in the background there. We use a little bit of ex-bourbon barrels to help mature this whiskey, so you get a lot of that sweetness that helps temper some of the intensity of the phenols up front. To us, balance is really the name of the game when it comes to whiskey. We want you to taste all of those things. When you read a tasting note, it's not like someone just sat in a room and said, well, it's gooseberries and blackberries and blueberries. We actually want you to get those things. We just don't necessarily expect it to be so clean as to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. When a whiskey's really balanced out, you should just get sort of shades of all of them coming through at the same time.
Well, this is definitely that. It's peaty up front. It's very peaty in the nose and on the front of your tongue, and then the peat almost vanishes, I think, as you swallow it, and the finish is very clean and sweet. That's what I get off of it.
And where does the peat come from that you guys use?
Yeah, so it's mostly Central Highland and coastal Scottish peat.
So you import Scottish peat.
No, it's actually coming. The barley is
Peated
coming
barley.
to us peated. Yeah, so we're
okay.
buying peated malted barley. Now we're in the process right now of actually working with a local maltster in the state of Washington called Skagit Valley Malting.
Is that what they're
And
called? Maltsters?
Yeah, commercial
love that. I
maltsters.
didn't
Yeah,
know
it's,
that.
you can't beat that, right?
You have that on your card?
Maltster.
That it's a good look. So we're working with Skagit Valley Malting, and what they're doing right now is they're actually sourcing local Washington State peat. And what's interesting is that the complexity. When you think about peat, it's by definition it's a plant-based,
Kind of like rotting vegetal root type of stuff that they'd burn in a fireplace in Scotland or something.
Exactly. The difference being is that the vegetation that's present in those individual peat bogs is going to have a huge implication on the actual smoke quality and the actual scent of it. So
Sure.
depending on where you're sourcing that stuff from, you're really going to get a different complexity and a different style of peat in the whiskey. I've always found it interesting that when people talk about peating, they often ask the question yes or no, but it's rarely where. And where in peat has as much to do as whether or not the whiskey is actually peated.
Well, we talked about that last time. We did something with Signatory, and we had a Highland Park that has a non-Isla peat, and it's got this floral heather peated quality that's totally different. So this is cool to try kind of, well, this one isn't, but when we get to try an American peat.
Yeah, when are you guys going to come online with the fully
It'll be a
fully
little while.
local-
We've distilled it. It's on its way into barreling at this point, and it'll be a couple of years until we start to see that.
Oh, wow.
But, yeah, we're really sort of keen on this. We're working with, so Skagit Valley, to kind of touch back on what they're doing, is they're working with the Washington State University Bread Lab. There's this guy, Dr. Stephen Jones, who is doing some incredible work trying to develop these unique strains of barley that we can actually go and do one-off runs of. So we are getting ready to do a mashing of a strain of barley called Purple Obsidian, which is, if you get an opportunity to look on our Instagram feed, we've got a picture of a day when we were out there, and Purple Obsidian is just incredible. It's a huskless barley, but it is, almost
Huskless
black.
barley.
It's
Okay.
incredible. It's just such a neat thing to see, and those are the type of opportunities that are afforded to us because we're in the Pacific Northwest. We get the question pretty regularly, well, you're an American whiskey producer. Why are you making single malt? Well, you think about the commercial or access to crop out there. There's not a lot of corn and rye and wheat. It's barley country. I mean, we're using what's localized to us because we have a tremendous amount of pride in the region that we're from.
Purple Obsidian, is that what it's called?
Yeah, Purple
That'd be
Obsidian.
a really cool name for a band. Like
Yeah.
Purple Obsidian.
It probably was a band at some point. I hate to say it. The barley's probably named after the band.
Yeah. The
And
purple
so-
stuff is always the best.
Oh,
So is it a goal of Westland to sort of become as local as possible just in the ingredients in terms of getting the peat and doing that smoking? Is that something that you guys are moving towards as sort of like a pure Washington State product or something?
it's
or-
not so much it's something we're intentionally moving our way or sort of moving towards. It's more a matter of, and it cuts back into this idea of thoughtful. It's how can we be doing things that's good for our local agriculture, that's going to enrich the quality of the ingredients that we have available to us. Listen, at the end of the day, Westland is going to try to always make the best quality whiskey humanly possible. If that means that more of our crop comes from Washington State or some of it doesn't come from Washington State, it's again coming back to this idea of how can we make it better.
Gotcha.
Yeah, there's definitely a catch-22 involved with that. You want to, we certainly want to take we have a tremendous amount of pride in where we're from and the local producers we work with. But at the end of the day, we have a responsibility to anyone that picks up a bottle of Westland to make the best quality whiskey possible.
Right, you're not going to be spiteful to be local.
No, I would think that's not necessarily in our future.
Cool.
Well, that's a good
that's good to
segue
know.
into the Garyanna. I haven't
Garyanna.
tried this yet, and this is a very special
Yeah, so
bottle.
This is, I would argue, as special as it gets right now from Westland. And
I've never tasted this one, so I'm really excited to get into this.
So this was, as I understood it, sort of a locally sourced wood for the barrels that.
it is. So getting back into funny Latin words, it's Quercus Garyanna, which is Gary oak. It's a species of oak that is pretty localized to the West Coast, exclusively localized to the West Coast. So it's starting in sort of Central California, up and through the southern parts of British Columbia. It's a protected species of oak that you're actually no longer allowed to just go in and cut out. Garyanna meadows, or Gary meadows as they're known, are unfortunately, they're going the way of the dinosaurs at this point, where there's not a lot of them left, and we have to be really sort of protective of the species.
So we're drinking like endangered wood.
Yeah.
Was
So
that
we,
like,
we talk about that a little bit. Yeah, we're kind
like
of
Marlon
mindful.
Brando in The Graduate or whatever?
But for what it's worth, this is a style
Justin
of oak that
Hoffman.
The freshman?
you have to.
Not the
freshman,
graduate.
yes.
The freshman, yeah.
Where he does the all endangered species dinner.
Komodo dragon dinner.
We're not.
That's the
there's
freshman,
you
right?
won't see any Komodo dragon matured whiskeys coming out of Westland anytime soon.
Okay.
No, with Garyanna, the idea is that we're working with Rewind Cooperage out of Oregon. What they're doing is they're finding fallen trees, Garyanna trees, that they grow a lot slower than Quercus alba. So you're looking at almost 300 years before you'll start to see these things available to us. And then what happens is
That seems like too long.
well, because you can't chop it down, and it's a part of protecting the species of oak. We're really mindful of that.
So we'll have another batch in 2316.
So we were pretty ahead of the game with Garyanna. So when we started tasting whiskey in cask that was Garyanna, that was going to be earmarked for the Garyanna series of the project, we went back to Rewind and basically bought all of their stock of Gary Oak. And we are very glad that we did, because as we're starting to put more and more things, and we actually just took a picture not that long ago of a fresh set of Gary casks that came through to us. We envision this being something that we really want to be pretty serious about, and to the point where we're actually all going to be out in a Gary Oak meadow doing a replanting at the end of February. Wow. So we'll all be flying out there and trying to really sort of be mindful of the fact that it's not just about being great for the distillery. It's about how are we improving this sort of everything that goes into making Westland and making the Pacific Northwest such a special place.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, and this is awesome.
Yeah, it is a
really,
great bottle of whiskey.
Really tasty. And so just so everybody understands, this is barreled, bottled at barrel strength, cask strength. So it hasn't been proofed down at all. This is 56.2%, or what, 112 proof.
112 for you.
So you're drinking a high test, more cask strength style here.
More into the beast
Yeah,
category.
more a beast. And I know we usually talk about beasts as being like full-bodied, big, smoky, or spicy, or whatever cask strength whiskeys, and this is a little more in line with our usual fare.
Yeah. So one of our now that I have you up here on the spot in front of all these people.
Oh boy.
We do private barrels for the group. So I want everybody to kind of taste through these and see which one their favorite is. And then all night we have to pressure Chris to deliver a private barrel of our favorite one. For me, I don't know. I know you don't do private barrels of Garyanna.
We do not.
Yet.
We do not, yeah.
But there's always a first for everything, Chris.
Well, so actually, unfortunately, you've actually been beaten to that. Before we released Garyanna.
You don't have to tell people. I mean, we can just keep it between us. We can always say we're first. We can be legends in our own mind.
Especially in New York. It won't be a very well-kept secret. But the first time that we released Garyanna was actually a hand-fill cask at the distillery. You could go in and bottle your own. It's a 375. And then we released a single barrel for Astor Wine and Spirits here in New York. That was one, and then a retailer on the West Coast did one as well.
So it should be no problem at all then.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, so I think what we realize is that looking back on that now, we probably would be pretty mindful of trying to maintain these, because they don't. We're just starting now to fill these first set of barrels the second time, but we've not bottled that stuff yet. So we're not quite sure how much of the intensity of that Gary Oak cask flavor is going to come through in the second. I mean, to me, Gary Oak, you talk about the immediate tasting note to me is it's Kansas City barbecue. It's molasses.
Yes.
It's rich. It's spicy. There's ginger. I mean, it's such a big, rich bottle of whiskey.
That hit me immediately, was that spicy, gingery note, which I don't think I've ever really tasted in a whiskey before. There's something with that wood that brings something very unique to this that is super special. Like I can see why it flew off the shelves and very hard to find right now.
That's interesting. Ginger and barbecue. You wouldn't think of that too. That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
We had. I
It's
remember
like almost like an Asian barbecue sauce, kind of like scallion ginger barbecue. Like, yeah, it's good stuff.
I remember when we launched this. It was what would have been? It would have been July 15th, I think, and it was. We've done launches, we've done the April Fool's releases and things like that. And we've always gotten a really nice crowd. When Garyanna was getting launched, we had a line like down the block to get it. It was just incredible. The local reaction was really great, and then it launched nationally around the country.
People can't resist consuming anything to do with endangered species. I mean, let's just be real. Like, they're like, is there none left? I must have it.
Ben and I are going to be out there with a chainsaw and ski masks. Chopping down the endangered Komodo dragon tree.
But I just think it's such an awesome little whiskey. It's the essence of the Northwest in a glass. It really is. I mean, to have something, and only this is an 11 cask vatting. Only two of the casks that were in that vatting were actually Gary Oak casks. So it's
11 casks, so that's a pretty limited run.
Yeah. I mean, it was a small. I think total production on it was 23 or 2,400 bottles. So
Right.
it wasn't a huge amount of whiskey. And obviously, we earmark a lot of that for our local market in Washington. So it's I think the state of New York only got maybe 15 six-packs. It was a
It was
really
not
limited run.
easy to find here.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
And there's another one coming out soon.
So yeah, we are in the planning process for Garyanna 2.0. We expect that sometime in June. That's our plan.
All right. Well, we'll try to get some for the site. So.
Yeah.
And so now we can move on to the winter 2016.
Yeah.
So this is
Winter.
another special release that they do. Westland does every winter.
Tell us what the winter is. Though.
Yeah,
I'm excited
so-
to try this too.
This is the inaugural release of our sort of holiday bottling, we'll call it. Winter it's based around this one really incredible cask.
a little peat in there?
Yeah, it was a peated first fill Oloroso hogshead, and it's
Ooh.
just incredible. I mean, a really rich bottling of whiskey. The idea with Winter was to sort of capture this whiskey that was this idea of like coming in from a really cold day into this warm house with the fire, and you really do get a little bit of all of that. You get the richness of the sherry tone, you get that sort of whisper of smoke on the finish of it, but none of those things sort of cover everything. It's bottled a little higher at 50%, not cask strength, but certainly not diluted down at all. And but yeah, so Winter was it was released at the distillery. We have a little bit left there. We are trying to decide if we're going to just kind of keep it at the distillery or we actually are going to do a rollout of it. We haven't made a final call on that, but it does look like we're pointing in the direction of offering it out to a couple of states around the country.
Cool.
Awesome. And
Very
yeah,
cool.
so again, we are thinking about how we can get a private barrel from Westland.
Right.
Yeah.
So no, just so for everybody here, just think about which of these kinds of styles appeals to you, because I think we're going to be talking about what we might want to pursue in terms of a private barrel. Also for Norwood members, these things are on the table as well, maybe for Norwood. So, think about what you've tasted here and kind of keep in mind the different profiles of the different styles that Westland creates, and we can try and figure out what our strategy might be for barrel picking, and maybe even if we can exert more pressure, we could entice the folks at Westland to maybe do some kind of special project with us or something.
Yeah, well, I look through our cask register pretty regularly. We update it on a daily basis, and I look at some of the barrels in there, and I get on a personal level. I mean, you take for granted, I think, sometimes people that work in the whiskey industry, just how excited we are about whiskey. Listen, it's a line of work like anything else, but we're lovers of whiskey as well, and we love that creativity that we have the opportunity to work with. And I look through that cask register some days, and all I do is just dream about like when those whiskeys are going to come out, because we have got some really incredible stuff that we're laying down, and it's just a matter of kind of putting that creativity to good use and making an awesome whiskey out of it.
So pick your favorite, twist Chris's arm all night, and then we'll come back and we'll do a live kind of vote, and we'll taste through some different casks and pick one.
Yeah, and I
That'd
mean,
be really fun.
I think all the passion, like you're talking about, definitely shows through in everything that Westland makes. It's definitely a cut above the standard American craft spirits market for sure. And I like we said,
Definitely.
we think you guys are really at the forefront, especially of American single malts, and it's a real treat to get to have this stuff and to have you here.
It's kind of you to say. Thank you.
Thanks for
This
coming.
winter is a great way to end it because it's almost like the best pieces of all these. It's got the peat, it's
a
got
super
the
combo.
sweetness, it's
Everything.
got that cocoa,
It's
it's got the
poo-poo
espresso.
platter of Westland whiskeys.
I can.
You're
Steve-
welcome to use my name. Ben Paluba said, "Poo-poo platter of Westland whiskey."
I'm sure Steve Hawley, our creative director, is going to listen to this and be like, "We got to put that on a piece of paper."
You're like, we gotta kill that guy before he keeps talking about this. They're like, do we have a guy in New York? Stop him now.
Yeah. Well, should we take a question or two from the
Yeah.
friends? Anybody have a
any-
question for
any
Chris?
questions
Anybody?
for Chris? Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Come on.
Oh, boy.
Come on up.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely.
Chris, in Scotland, there are, depending on who you ask, somewhere between 4 and 10 regions of single malt.
God.
Do you
Name
or
them
does
and-
Westland have an opinion on what the regions of American single malt might be, or what's emerging as specific styles of American single malt?
I
Interesting
think
question.
that's a great question. I think at this point, our mindset is to be as inclusive as possible based on the sort of basic criteria that we've laid out. I would encourage anyone that's listening to this and is interested to take a look at AmericanSingleMaltWhiskeyCommission.com, I believe, or .org, and really give that a look, because we've got a lot of great partners on there. And I think at this point, to start, expecting that there are going to be, we'll call them AVAs, or specific producing regions that are going to have their own sort of typicity. I think we're a little early to start having those sort of conversations. I think right now we just want other great producers to come out and make American Single Malt.
Sorry, wait, what was that word? Typicity?
Yeah.
Typicity. Can we get into that one?
Yeah.
What is typicity?
We definitely talked. We talked a little bit
catch.
about cepage on a recent podcast.
we love the
So we love
jargon.
yeah.
Yeah.
Cepage. We talked a little
What's
bit about
typicity?
cepage.
Yeah,
What's
just sort of a
typicity?
localized type to me. It's this
Okay.
sort of this idea of having a specific style that's sort of localized to a specific type
So
of
it's not
whiskey.
like a urinary tract disorder.
No, I would hope not. My God. Yeah, that would be
Yum!
very
Thanks,
bad if it
Ben.
was.
You're really just knocking them out of the park tonight.
Thanks. That's what
Well,
I'm here
I think
for.
that question, I mean, like, would imply that there would be many distilleries like Westland on the West Coast making something that tastes similar, which I don't think there are.
There aren't right now.
Just like there's nothing like Balcones in Texas. It's a unique thing. So it's not like I mean, they are making unique Texas single malt, but it's not like that is representative of Texas single malt. It's just representative of them. I think it's
Of
a
what they
similar
do, right.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody else have
Any other
questions? Keith.
Is anyone selling Westland in Scotland?
Oh. Can you buy Westland in Scotland?
I don't believe you can buy Westland in Scotland at the moment. You can buy Westland in England, and you can buy Westland in France and Australia and Japan, a few Scandinavian countries. We are actually the sort of latter half of 2016. We really started exploring some international markets, and I think obviously with coming under the sort of Remy USA, or excuse me, Remy Cointreau umbrella, there's this expectation that we will expand our international base.
Cool.
That would
yeah,
be
is
like some conquering, right?
Yeah.
If you could like take American single malt to Scotland.
Yeah.
Is that like taking American wine to France or something?
Well, there's been some of that, like California wines winning.
Yeah.
Judgment of
huge.
Paris.
Yeah. So
Interesting.
Who knows? It could happen. Remains to be seen. Anyone else?
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you guys experimenting with other woods, and how much does the wood affect?
Question was, how big is your wood and what shape is it?
I heard that very differently. I'm going to be honest with you. Yeah, heard that pretty differently.
How much wood do you sport? And are you looking into more wood sporting in the near future?
Take it away.
Yeah. So now you've got me a bit off track, but so to the first part of that, yeah, we're not so much experimenting with other types of wood, with the exception of Garyanna. We are certainly experimenting with different finishes when it comes to taking Quercus white oak cask and then using different finishes and then seeing how that will affect the overall flavor of the whiskey. I think right now we're a little more inclined to be looking at just sort of how we can make Garyanna even better, and then a part of that is experimenting with localized strains of barley.
Cool. Please.
Are you aware of anybody that is doing experiments in wood?
Are there other experiments in wood? Other
Yeah,
question.
off the top of my head, I couldn't say that I am, but I would imagine with the number of distilleries that are here in the U.S., I would imagine someone probably is.
All right. Oh, yes. Greg.
Is everything that you bottle basically grown from infancy at Westland, or are you sourcing whiskey from other places to blend in?
No, there's
The
absolutely.
question was, do you personally carry and give birth to every bottle that comes out of Westland?
Yeah, no, there's absolutely no source whiskey that we're using.
Westland makes all their hooch.
We do.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. So I mean, one of the things that Westland, when we started doing this thing back in 2010, this idea was, we're going to do everything the right way. We're not going to cut corners. We're not going to use quarter casks. We're going to do everything in 53s or bigger. We're going to really set this thing down with the expectation that we are going to be not only at the table, but trying to lead the table for American Single Malt. And the best way to do that is to have pride in what you're doing, to do it yourself.
Well, how about a hand for Chris? Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you guys all for coming tonight.
absolutely.
We hope we see you again at some future Beastmasters events. Thanks for your support. You can find us online, beastmastersclub.com. We're on all the social media channels. We appreciate your follows, your supports. I will plug the hell out of my thing as much as I can.
Thanks again to the Norwood. Isn't this place
yeah.
amazing? Like, beautiful club.
Huge thanks to the Norwood. They have been
Teddy
an incredible
the man.
partner. Thanks to Teddy for hosting us here tonight.
Thanks
for
again.
having me, guys.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you.